Hey everyone, Tom Morcus here, the founder of Insurgent Publishing and the author of the soon to be released book, Command, a step by step guide to collaborative product development. Today, I want to take you through a recent collaborative product that I led and that we shipped, and we ended up launching a product/service in the five figures, actually raising close to $30,000 from the launch. And so this is the project that I'm focusing on. This is actually going to make it into the book and into the bonus content when I release in November. So mark your calendars and subscribe to tommorcus.com if you want updates on that. But for today, I want to actually take you through the process of how we went from idea to shippable product. Because a lot of people talk about this and they give like all this vague information, generalizations, and they say, well, you need to do this and you need to do that, and it's like it's not useful. It just isn't, and that's the majority of the content that's out there. Very few people that I've ever seen actually go through and show what's been done and how it's been done to actually turn an idea into a product and into a business actually. So we went from an idea to a business, and the product and service that we launched to start that business brought in that revenue that I just told you. But that's not just the revenue of the business only. Now we're going to expand that into additional products and services. But this was our launch of the business to see if we could make it happen, to see if we could validate it, to see if it was worthwhile. And then now from here, like I said, we're going to build it into we're going to create additional products and services and create additional streams of revenue to expand out the actual revenue base of this business, which again makes it a real business versus just a single project. So what I'm talking about and what I'm going to be referencing here is specifically how I launched highspeedelite.com, which is a premium business mastermind co-founded by John Lee Dumas of Entrepreneur on Fire and Antonio Centeno of Real Men's Mural Style and myself, Tom Morcus of insurgentpublishing.com. And it's actually our premium service that we offer outside of highspeedlowdrag.org, which is another website that we created, we co-created, and we put out there to help any veterans transitioning out of the military to succeed in the civilian world. So in today's video, and I'll be doing several more videos on this over the next few weeks as I build out this kind of like in-depth behind-the-scenes look at how we did this. Today's video, I just want to focus on what I call the open loop framework, or excuse me, the open loop product development framework, which is it's kind of an unconventional take on something that's pretty standard, which is the product development process. So I use oftentimes, and I've talked about this before and I've taught it before, is the Lean Canvas by Ash Maria of Running Lean, which again I think is very effective, and you can Google it. But if you check out some of my old blog posts, I've written about it and explain how I use it, and I'll add a free template that you can download, a PowerPoint template, in the bonus section here, which you can sign into right below this or at the top of this post. I'll have a couple options where you can log into that and sign up for the bonuses that'll have a lot more in-depth videos about how we did different aspects of this. And I'll also include the template there for that, the Lean Canvas that we created for this product. But that just gives you a basis of like a look, like an idea of what you're trying to build. But the question is like, how do you actually, when you're using it, like how do you go about creating it? So that's where the open loop system comes in, where you're constantly, as you fill the few key points I'm going to talk about here in a second, as you fill them out, and you kind of go around in a circle, and they kind of, as you create one, as you take your ideas from inside your brain and put them on a paper here, and you see, okay, I got this idea for a product. Now let's go to the problem that it's solving. Now let's check out the solution and see how they're dependent on one another and how they affect one another. And that's what creates the open loop, which is that one affects the other. And as you go through this a few times, kind of a big concept of what I call thrashing, which is a term I know I've heard others use, and I really enjoy it. And it just means kind of going through this process, thrashing out your business model, and in particular your product model, because a business is nothing more than a lot of products. So first, I want to go over what I consider the most important parts of the the open loop product development framework. And so it starts with, you have this idea for something great, okay? So whatever this idea is, the first thing you want to do is say, okay, I have this idea. Now, who is the customer? Let's identify who the customer is first and foremost. Who specifically are we looking for? More importantly, how do we reach the first 10 or first 100 of these people? Because if you can't answer that, you don't really have a customer segment, do you? If you truly can't answer that, and we'll get into more details later, then you're not going to be successful at actually launching something and actually making money from it if you can't figure out who your first 10 customers are going to be. And by thinking in terms of the first 10 customers, you have to get very specific. You might actually have to dip into your own network of people that you have, even if you don't have like a platform or a website or anything like that. You'll have to think about who are the people that I know that might like this product or service for this problem that I've identified. Okay? So start with a customer and think in terms of the first 10 customers. Then the second thing is we go to the problem. So is this a real problem that this customer segment is actually having and that they're already trying to solve? And what are they using right now to solve it? So a lot of people can get an idea, oh, here's what I'm going to provide. And it's like, wait a second, you might view it as a problem, but does this customer segment that we're talking about view it as a problem? And are they paying for a solution right now? Because if the answer is no to either of those, then it's a kind of a hard-fought battle here. I'm not saying it's impossible, but if you can't see examples of where this customer segment is like identifying this problem and what they're doing about it, and if they're doing nothing, that's a solution too. But that's a scary solution for you because then it means they can just ignore your product too. So you want to, when you talk about the problem, you want to identify it specifically in terms of those 10 customers that we just talked about. And you want to ask, what are they using right now? What are they paying for right now to solve this problem? So then we now move into the solution. What's the product or service that you can offer that would be of interest to these 10 people? Okay? What is the solution that they would pay for? And a great way to do this is look at what they're already paying for. And again, if they're choosing to pay nothing, they're choosing to do nothing about it, then I'm not sure you have a viable business on your hands. There's a fine line there, but it's tough because now you're going into really unproven terrain. If I'm content with just doing nothing to solve a problem that I have, how are you going to get me to pay money for it? And that now it's not impossible, but it helps to have a model to say, yeah, I see these people over here that are paying for a solution. This is their solution, but I don't think it's good enough. There's a better way to do this. Bam. That's kind of where now we get into the unfair advantage, which is the next piece here. So before we get into unfair advantage, the solution, the product or service, specifically, what are you offering? And why should I care? Which leads into the unfair advantage. What is your unfair advantage? If you don't have one, then why would people listen to you? And that's what your unfair advantage is. It's saying there's something unique about you or about the product that lets you stand out from a crowd, right? So why do I listen to you? Why do I care about your product? And it better be something that matters to the product itself. That's your unfair advantage, okay? And so the questions you want to ask yourself is, why would someone buy from me or from us, from my company? Why would somebody buy this product? And what makes us so special that they can't ignore us? What makes our product so special they can't ignore us? That's your unfair advantage. Then that leads into the marketing and sales channels. How do you reach these 10 people? These first 100 people. Don't think about the first million people. It's ridiculous. It's a cop-out. Think about how you're going to reach the first 10 people. Think about how you're going to reach the first 100. But again, I'd start with 10. Those are your marketing channels. And in particular, those are your early adopters. So when we're talking about the customers, the first 10, those are your early adopters. So how do you reach them? Because you're going to reach them in a different way than you're going to reach the first 100, then you're going to reach the first 1,000. It changes. So I think one of the things that I try to do when I launch these different projects, these collaborative projects that I've launched in the past year, about a few of them, and I've launched, I don't know, maybe a half dozen, and probably made 5 figures on a few of them, upwards of over $100,000 from these collaborative efforts. And one thing I can say time and time again is that every time we do a launch, I always focus on how do I get to that early adopter? How do I get to that first 10 people? So again, getting very specific and saying, how do we reach this person? Where are they hanging out? How do we find them? So then that leads to what the next question I ask, which is revenue and expenses. And this one's a tough one because people get caught up on this too. But you have to ask yourself, what is the payoff for this? And will it be worth my time to create? Because literally, you can create anything, and you can probably make money from anything, but how many hours are you going to have to put in to make X amount of money from it? And so having these, it's fun to have these kind of great ideas, I'll make $1 million off this idea, and that's cool, that's fun, but now you have to bring it down to reality and say, how much work will it take to create $1 million from this idea? Oftentimes, it's a ton of work. And it's so much work that most people quit, which makes it near impossible to achieve. So you want to ask yourself, is this really worth my time? How long will it take to create, and how many resources do I need? How much money do I need? Do I need money to invest in this? I'm sure you do at least a little bit to get it off the ground. How much revenue can you ultimately create from this? So from your time investment, from your money investment, from all the resources you're going to have to allocate to create this, what's going to be your return? And if you're not asking that question, you shouldn't be doing this. You shouldn't be creating a product or service, because you're going to start doing it and you're going to be passionate about it maybe, and then it's not going to bring in revenue, and then you're going to quit because you never asked the question to begin with, what's it worth to me? And that's where revenue versus expenses come in. So once you've gone through all that, now what do? Do you just build the product? No, you do two things. One, you set a ship date. And everything's going to take you about 3 to 6 times longer than you think it will. But that's okay. So if you could do this in a few months, I'll tell you this. Set it for no more than 3 months in the future, because if it's too long a project, you're going to quit. So a month is usually pretty solid if you can do it. And I truly believe you can launch anything in a month. You can launch a minimal viable product in a month. So focus on a month to 3 months tops. Don't let any project go longer than 3 months. So set your ship date right now. Now what? Do you go and build it? No. Open loop here. So now, with all the stuff that you've just written out, go back to the customer. As you've talked about the problem and the solution and the unfair advantage and how you're going to these different channels and the revenue expenses of your product or service, now ask yourself, is this customer that I kind of identified in the beginning, do they really have this problem? Is this a solution they'll pay for? Will I be able to reach them through these channels? Because maybe as you've gone through this, things have changed. You realize that the revenue doesn't make sense in comparison to the expenses. So to make it worth your time, you're going to have to charge a larger amount. That's exactly what we did with High Speed Elite. We went from talking about a $1,000 product or service, a few $100 products to launch with. And then we were like, no, you know what? It's not going to be worth our time. We need to make this at least $3,000. Truly. And that was kind of scary to launch a service at $3,000. And what it did was it actually forced us to then go change who our customer segment was, just slightly, ever so slightly, but so importantly, which was then became, instead of just kind of veterans, just transitioning veterans, it became veterans that were interested in building businesses. Which, believe it or not, that differentiation means the world when it comes to marketing and actually getting people to buy your product, because it changes everything. So once I went through this whole circle, I went back to the customer and I refined that customer. And then once I refined that customer, I went back to the problem. And I realized that the first problem that we identified, which was like they were having problems transitioning, again, problem that I'm a veteran, I don't know if I mentioned that, but, and so is John, so did Antonio. Yeah, we had problems transitioning, but our problems were different than other people's problems. Ultimately, when we went to build businesses, I went building business right out of getting out of the military. Antonio and John took a few years. But we realized that that problem that veterans have to build a business, it's different than the problem most veterans have when they're transitioning. So I refined the problem. And then I went to the solution. What would be the best product? We were talking about building an e-course to start, to launch. But we realized that what veterans really need is one-on-one time. They need hands-on training. And they need to be inspired by veterans who've done it. So John, Antonio, and I, that's our unfair advantage. We can do this. We can help them one-on-one. So as you can see, our solution led right into our unfair advantage. So then understanding that, we were able to refine our marketing channel. Realize Facebook is good, but you have to, for Facebook to be, for paid marketing channels like Facebook, you have to get very clear on who that first 10 customers are. So before we were kind of doing these generic ads, which I have another video in the bonuses where I show you how I created the ads and how I adjusted them to increase, to more than double my conversion, which is crazy, just by adjusting a few keywords and by focusing on who we were serving, which was the veterans who want to be entrepreneurs. And then finally, we reevaluated the revenue expenses. We talked about the premium product now. And then we said, okay, what are the expenses going to be to create this? Well, the beauty is it's actually an easier product or service to create, because while it takes a lot of time on our effort, on our end to fulfill the sale, it doesn't require a lot up front to sell it. In fact, the expenses were just creating a sales page, feeding the traffic through Facebook ads. So that was our funnel, doing a live webinar, and then closing sales. That was basically all we needed. A few pages to be created on websites, which doesn't cost much. There's not much overhead there. We already have the websites built. And that was it. We didn't actually need to have anything created, because what we were selling was the promise and an idea for the actual program. And then we're basically saying, hey, it's going to close up shop. We're going to have about a week or two here to sign up. And then we're closing it down. We're not going to launch until next year. And it's going to be double the price. It's a true story. So that's how we got our first essentially our first 10 customers was by doing it just that way to sell a premium product. So that gives you a brief overview of the open loop product development framework and why it's all about taking that idea and putting it through this process where you kind of go around in a circle basically like 2 or 3 times till you refined it and setting your ship date, right? And then you can step away from it and say, okay, now what's the first thing I build? But you don't do it till you've gone through a few times, till you've thrashed it out, until you've set your ship date, because nothing happens without a ship date. You will bail on it. You will throw in the towel, I promise you. But if you set a ship date, and again, the ship date actually affects the open loop here, because you'll recognize, wow, if I have to do this in 1 month, that's going to affect the product that I'm going to create. It's going to affect the service I'm going to launch. It's going to affect my minimal viable product, right? And it's going to affect how I reach my first 10 customers. Maybe in a month, I don't know if I'll have enough time to build a user base to make Facebook successful. So I'll have to, remove that marketing channel, right? So start with the idea, go through this circle: customer, problem, solution, unfair advantage, marketing, sales channel, and then revenue expenses. Go through it, set a ship date, and then go through it again. If you need to do it 2 or 3 times, that's what I did. Oftentimes, especially on collaborative projects, you want to talk back and forth, get some fidelity on an idea, and then come back to it and thrash it out some more until you get very concrete. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm going to be doing more of these in the future, so let me know what you think of the video in the comments below. And let me know what you'd like me to teach you, what you'd like me to share with you, because I'm open book here, and I'd love to share more information with you and show you how I've done it. So I have some ideas, but it's going to be based on your feedback, so I would love to hear from you. So leave a comment below and let me know what you thought of this video, what you think of this process, the open loop product development framework, and what else you'd like to see that would be helpful to you in creating your own premium product or service. I'm Tom Morcus, and if you're listening to this,